Echoes of the ward. It all started when a persistent pain in my abdomen led me to the seemingly innocuous doors of St Agnes Hospital. I checked in, assuming I'd be in and out after a quick examination, but little did I know that my stay would unveil the chilling secrets harbored within those sterile white walls. The hospital, with its antiseptic scent and flickering fluorescent lights, felt like a labyrinth of suffering. The staff moved with a mechanical precision that bordered on unsettling, their faces devoid of the warmth one would expect in a place of healing. Despite the pain in my stomach, a shiver ran down my spine as I navigated the labyrinthine corridors to my assigned room. The room was cold, the clinical white sheets providing little comfort. As the night descended, an eerie silence settled in, broken only by the distant hum of medical machinery. Sleep eluded me, and I lay there, staring at the flickering light outside my room's small window. Around midnight, a soft moan echoed through the corridor, and the air seemed to thicken with an otherworldly presence. I dismissed it as the groans of other patients, until the moans turned into agonized screams. A knees gripped me, and I pressed the call button for the nurse. The door swung open, revealing a nurse with vacant eyes and a monotone voice. She assured me that everything was under control, attributing the disturbance to a patient in the adjacent room. But as she left, the screams persisted, each one more chilling than the last. Unable to bear it any longer, I ventured into the corridor to investigate. The screams led me to the abandoned West Wing, a part of the hospital rumored to be haunted. The flickering lights cast long shadows on the peeling wallpaper, creating an atmosphere that sent shivers down my spine. The screams led me to a room at the end of the darkened hallway. The door creaked open, revealing a decrepit room bathed in an ethereal glow. A figure, emaciated and translucent, writhed in agony on the bed. The air grew colder, and a voice echoed in my mind, whispering words of pain and despair. I stumbled backward, realizing that the figure before me was not of this world. The hospital, it seemed, held the tormented spirits of those who had suffered within its walls. The ghostly patient locked eyes with me, and in that moment, I felt an inexplicable connection of shared agony that transcended the boundaries of life and death. As I hurried back to my room, the hospital seemed to shift. The sterile environment transformed into a twisted, nightmarish realm. Faces appeared in the flickering lights. Contorted in pain and despair, shadows danced on the walls, taking grotesque shapes that seemed to mock the concept of healing. Night after night, the ghostly screams echoed through the hospital, reverberating in the empty corridors. The staff, seemingly oblivious to the haunting, went about their duties with a stoic indifference. I pleaded with them to acknowledge the paranormal presence, but my words fell on deaf ears. One by one, the other patients disappeared, their beds left cold and empty. It became clear that the spirits sought something, a release from the torment that bound them to the hospital. The air thickened with a malevolent energy, and the hospital itself seemed to pulse with a dark heartbeat. In the end, unable to endure the spectral symphony of suffering, I discharged myself against medical advice. The pain in my abdomen remained, but it was a small price to pay for escape. As I walked away from St Agnes Hospital, the distant screams faded, but the haunting whispers of the ward lingered. A chilling reminder that some wounds, even in the realm of the living, never truly heal. Pulse of the abyss. The sterile scent of antiseptic hung heavy in the air. As I lay on the cold hospital bed, surrounded by the low hum of machinery and the distant echoes of hurried footsteps. The flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows on the stark walls, and the silence of the ward was broken only by the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor beside me. I felt like a solitary figure adrift in a sea of white, lost in the sterile expanse of the hospital. I had been admitted for a routine procedure, nothing more than a blip on the radar of the bustling medical facility. But as the night descended, a palpable unease settled in the air. The dimly lit corridors seemed to stretch into infinity, and the quiet whispers of the staff only intensified the ominous atmosphere that clung to the hospital like a shroud. The initial comfort of the medication-induced drowsiness began to wane, replaced by a gnawing awareness of my surroundings. The sterile scent gave way to an underlying odor, a sickly sweet stench that wafted through the air like an intangible fog. My eyes struggled to pierce the darkness, and I could swear shadows moved at the periphery of my vision. A nurse entered the room. Her footsteps muffled against the linoleum floor. She wore an impassive expression, her eyes devoid of the warmth one would expect from a caretaker. As she adjusted the foredrip, a chill crept over me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that her touch was more than clinical. It was an intrusion, a violation of the boundary between patient and healer. The heart monitor's beeping quickened, a dissonant melody that echoed the rising anxiety within me. I tried to dismiss my fears as mere side effects of the anesthesia, but the hospital had transformed into a nightmarish labyrinth, where reality and nightmare intertwined. Unable to sleep, I ventured into the dimly lit hallway, hoping the sterile corridors would provide some solace. The hospital, once a haven of healing, now seemed like a mausoleum where the boundaries between life and death blurred into a disconcerting dance. I passed empty rooms, their doors ajar, revealing glimpses of vacant beds bathed in the pale glow of the moonlight, filtering through the windows. The whispers grew louder, unintelligible voices that seemed to emanate from the very walls. I quickened my pace, but the corridor seemed to stretch endlessly, a disorienting maze of sterile white. As I turned a corner, I stumbled upon a room bathed in an otherworldly light. A figure in a tattered hospital gown stood at the window, its back hunched and convulsing in silent sobs. I approached cautiously, my pulse quickening with each step. The figure turned slowly, revealing hollow eyes that seemed to absorb the feeble light. "Help me," it whispered. A spectral plea that sent shivers down my spine. The figure reached out with translucent hands, and I recoiled, the air thick with the stench of decay. It was a patient from a bygone era, trapped in the limbo between life and death. I fled the room, my footsteps echoing in the desolate corridor. The hospital itself seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, its foundations built on a dark history of pain and suffering. The whispers intensified, a cacophony of tormented souls entwined with the very essence of the hospital's existence. As I stumbled back into my room, the heart monitor's incessant beeping reached a fevered pitch. The shadows in the corners of the room coalesced into a formless mass, and the sickly sweet stench grew overpowering. The hospital had become a vessel for the echoes of the past, a haunted sanctuary where the boundary between the living and the spectral blurred into a disconcerting dance. With a final, dissonant symphony, the heart monitor flatlined. The hospital plunged into silence, and the abyss claimed another soul, leaving behind only the echoes of the tormented past that lingered in the sterile air. The ward of whispering shadows, The flickering fluorescent lights overhead created a disorienting rhythm as I wandered through the dimly lit corridors of the abandoned hospital. The air was thick with the musty scent of neglect, and a chilling breeze whispered through the empty hallways, carrying with it the haunting echoes of a bygone era. A hallway with a flashlight revealing decaying medical equipment, rusted gurneys, and flickering shadows capturing the exploration of the decaying structure. The entrance was surprisingly ajar, as if inviting me into its forsaken embrace, with each echoing footstep. I delved deeper into the heart of the decaying structure, my breath visible in the cold, stagnant air. The dim glow of my flashlight revealed rusted gurneys and forgotten medical equipment scattered throughout the abandoned wards. Flickering shadows danced on the peeling wallpaper, creating eerie tableaus that seemed to shift with the pulse of the building. It was in one such shadowy corner that I first heard the soft, agonizing whispers. At first, the words were indistinct, mere murmurs that toyed with the edges of my consciousness. Ignoring the rising sense of unease, I followed the haunting sounds, drawn toward the source like a moth to a flame. The whispers grew clearer, the voices overlapping in a cacophony of despair. Turning a corner, I entered a ward frozen in time. Dilapidated curtains hung like shrouds around empty beds, and the lingering scent of antiseptic mingled with the unmistakable odor of decay. In the center of the room, a flickering light cast elongated shadows that seemed to writhe with unseen entities. As I approached, the whispers intensified, each voice a lamentation of suffering and sorrow. The air became charged with a palpable energy, and I could feel the weight of the hospital's tragic history pressing down on me. It was as if the very walls retained the memories of the pain and despair that once permeated the space. In the feeble glow of my flashlight, I saw the silhouette of a spectral figure at the far end of the ward. Its movements were slow and deliberate, as if reliving a tragic routine. I tried to call out, but my voice caught in my throat. The figure turned toward me, its hollow eyes meeting mine, and the whispers reached a crescendo. A sudden gust extinguished my flashlight, plunging the room into impenetrable darkness. Panic set in as I fumbled for my phone, the pale light revealing the figure now inches away. Its features were etched in agony, a silent scream frozen on its face. The air grew colder, and I could feel the weight of unseen hands closing in. Desperation compelled me to flee, but the once familiar corridors now twisted and turned in disorienting patterns. The whispers became a chorus of torment, each step echoing the anguished footsteps of those who had suffered within these walls. I stumbled through the darkness, pursued by unseen forces that seemed to feed on the echoes of the hospital's haunted past. Finally, I burst through the hospital doors into the cool night air. The building loomed behind me, a silent sentinel haunted by the souls it could not release. As I looked back, I couldn't shake the feeling that the whispers lingered in the shadows, waiting for the next curious soul to uncover the chilling secrets of the ward of whispering shadows.